Protests ignite across the country in the wake of the Breonna Taylor grand jury decision. What you can expect here in Arizona tonight.
Plus, we take a look at how COVID-19 is affecting migrants seeking asylum in the U.S.
And more than 100 ex-John McCain staffers endorsing Joe Biden? We talked to several of them about that decision and the upcoming presidential election.
Cronkite News starts now.
Good evening and welcome to Cronkite News on Arizona PBS. I'm Tyler Mannion.
And I'm Rosara Wordsworth. Thank you for joining us.
Our big story today, widespread protests in Louisville and across the country overnight after news broke that the 3 officers involved in the death of Breonna Taylor would not be charged with her killing. Now, there's concern for the possibility of more violence today. Last night, about 127 people were arrested in Kentucky, including a 26-year-old who was accused of shooting 2 police officers. Both are in stable condition right now.
Here in Phoenix, demonstrators gathered for a candlelight vigil to protest racial injustice last night. No arrests were made. And tonight, another protest is scheduled downtown. Isabella Martellaro has more on what we can expect.
The lack of charges against the officers involved with the killing of Breonna Taylor has led to protests across the nation, including here in Phoenix, where protesters are gathering tonight for a candlelit vigil in honor of Breonna Taylor and Dion Johnson.
Our expectations are never placed on our community. We work with our community constantly and have open dialogue with them. What we're hoping is that it continues to be a peaceful demonstration and people get to voice their opinion and that there is no interaction between police and demonstrators.
Sergeant Mercedes Fortune of the Phoenix Police Department says the protests throughout the week have been peaceful. However, the department released a set of guidelines outlining the expected behavior of individuals participating in the demonstrations. Isabella Martellaro, Cronkite News.
Tonight's candlelight vigil will take place at Phoenix City Hall Plaza near 2nd Avenue in Washington. It starts at 8 this evening.
Arizona's largest healthcare provider is calling on city leaders to keep mask mandates as long as possible to help slow the spread of COVID-19. Although Scottsdale and Gilbert have already lifted their mask mandates, people are still required to wear them under Maricopa County's order. But right now, Maricopa County is discussing the idea of ending that order. If they do, cities and towns would have the option to not require masks in public places. As of this morning, the total number of coronavirus infections in Arizona was over 215,000, with nearly 5,600 deaths. Peter Fine, the president and CEO of Banner Health, released a statement saying, quote, "For everyone's sake, we must stay the course on masking and distancing for the foreseeable future."
Meanwhile, the global pandemic has made the journey of crossing the U.S.-Mexico border even more complicated for migrants. Cronkite News reporter Delaney White spoke with an asylum seeker forced to wait outside the U.S. for their hearing.
Making the journey across the U.S. border is full of challenges, and for many migrants, those challenges continue once they have entered the U.S. We spoke with Jacqueline Martinez about her unique experience migrating from Guatemala to the U.S. during the COVID-19 pandemic.
After making the journey to the U.S., some migrants seeking asylum are being sent back across the border to wait for their hearing in another country. Jacqueline Martinez is one of many who have been detained by Border Patrol and sent to Mexico to wait for their hearing after fleeing from what she called a dangerous situation in her home country.
Me asaltaron, me quitaron todo y me apuntaron con un arma.
Martinez explains her experience with Border Patrol agents after entering the U.S.
Nos entrevistaron y todo, pero la verdad es que ellos más que todo nos obligaron a poner las huellas y todo, nos engañaron, más que todo nos forzaron, nos obligaron, porque la verdad ni siquiera sabíamos qué estábamos firmando nosotros, y así fue como nos deportaron para acá.
Martinez was deported to Sonora, Mexico, where she is awaiting her hearing at the Casa del Migrante shelter. The director of the shelter, Martín Salgado, explains that there has been a massive increase in the number of migrants they are assisting.
Porque antes de la pandemia servíamos en promedio 2,000 comidas al mes. Y en lo que ha sido la pandemia, esos números se multiplicaron y hoy estamos dando en promedio 5,000 comidas al mes.
According to the latest numbers from CBP, during the month of August 2020, a total of 46,864 individuals were apprehended between ports of entry on the southwest border, compared to 38,463 in July and 30,767 in June. The Department of Homeland Security reports over 3,000 refugees admitted into the country in the fiscal year 2020, which means a decline of 43% from fiscal year 2019. Immigration attorney Yasser Sanchez explains why he believes so many migrants are awaiting hearings from shelters outside the U.S.
We are in the middle of a pandemic, and that's a valid reason to take security measures. But what we haven't seen is an administration use a national disaster like the one we're facing, and in order to basically violate someone's due process or constitutional rights.
Though the current process of entering the U.S. has become more challenging for migrants like Martinez, she feels it is worth it to provide a better life for her children.
No podemos regresar a nuestro país porque hemos sido amenazadas allá donde estábamos y la verdad es que voy buscando lo mejor para mis hijos.
The DHS and DOJ recently announced a plan to resume removal hearings for migrants subject to the migrant protection protocols. The plan is heavily based on the public health criteria listed on the DHS website. Delaney White, Cronkite News.
For more information about removal hearings, visit the DHS website at dhs.gov. Delaney White, Cronkite News.
As the race to develop a coronavirus vaccine continues, President Trump has repeatedly said he expects to have one available to the public around Election Day. But much to President Trump's annoyance, the Food and Drug Administration says no COVID-19 vaccines will be approved without passing its safety checks. Sources tell CNN the FDA is thinking about stricter guidelines for emergency authorization of a vaccine. This comes as recent polls show Americans are skeptical about the vaccine process. Right now, the National Institutes of Health director reports 2 more COVID-19 vaccines will likely soon enter phase 3 trials.
As for election 2020, the widow of longtime Republican Senator John McCain has publicly announced her support for Vice President Joe Biden. Yesterday, she spoke to several news outlets about her decision. Take a listen.
I've covered you and your family over two John McCain presidential campaigns. In 1999, if someone had told me that you would be endorsing a Democratic presidential candidate, I would not have believed them.
I certainly understand that. I wouldn't have believed it. So I'm just glad to be a part of this campaign and glad to be, obviously listening and being able to be helpful within this issue of electing Joe Biden. But let me say, if I may first, I pray for the community of Louisville right now. This is a perfect example of why it's so necessary to listen to our communities, listen to people of color, of different people that are different, people that are the same. We have to sit down now and really try to mend this, and Joe Biden's the one person that can do that.
President Trump responded by tweeting, quote, "I hardly know Cindy McCain other than having put her on a committee at her husband's request. Joe Biden was John McCain's lapdog. So many bad decisions on endless wars and VA, which I brought from horror show to high approval. Never a fan of John, Cindy can have Sleepy Joe."
Cindy McCain is not the only Republican deciding to vote blue this presidential cycle. Cronkite News reporter Tina Giuliano spoke with some former McCain staffers who are now Biden supporters.
Bettina Nava doesn't care if the next resident of the White House is a Republican politician or a Democratic politician, as long as it's a civil politician.
We just do need a return to civility.
Nava is one of more than 100 former aides to the late Republican Senator John McCain, who signed a letter endorsing the Democratic nominee for President Joe Biden. They said their letter echoed McCain's 2008 presidential campaign motto, "Country First."
The spirit of it is that it's about putting our country first. It's about the evolution of democracy. It's about refusing to impose our value system on someone else.
Values the aides said were embodied in their former boss.
Because we keep trying to find a way to win without help from across the aisle.
Wes Gullett, one of the McCain alums, said it's about bringing the country together.
That was a home of John McCain. That was something many of us worked for him, was his willingness to work across party lines to get things done. while still keeping that compass, that Republican North Star.
The McCain aides are a part of a growing chorus of Republicans who have expressed support for Biden. Former Arizona Congressman Jim Colby said it comes down to who is the right person for the job.
There is no one political party, either the Republican or the Democrat, that has a lock on all the right answers to things. That's just isn't the way it is.
Colby was a part of two other groups of Republicans who publicly endorsed Biden, not for policy, but for personality.
So while I have certainly disagreements with Vice President Biden over some policies, I think that he is the much better choice.
Colby's endorsements came during the Republican National Convention, as did the McCain staffers letter. Jason Rose, a Republican political consultant in Arizona, said the timing was no accident.
I think this was a smart move by the Biden campaign, and certainly a sincere effort by McCain staffers who have the president.
For Nava, this election season provides Americans with a chance to heal.
This president, although I don't disagree with him on everything, does tend to stoke division, and it's a division that we're not healing from.
To their part, Trump campaign officials recently told Cronkite News that they have a solid support system and a record of success that will carry them straight into November. In Washington, Tina Giuliano, Cronkite News.
According to ABC News and Washington Post public opinion surveys released yesterday, Trump currently holds a 1-point edge over the former vice president among likely voters in Arizona.
Coming up next on Cronkite News, signs of life on Venus? What scientists discovered about Earth's twin?
And looking for a fun activity for you and your family? After the break, the perfect place to monkey around this weekend. Don't go away.
I'm Judy Woodruff, anchor and managing editor of the PBS NewsHour. The journalists of tomorrow face a fast-changing media landscape, but quality news remains vitally important to our communities, our country, and our world. At ASU's Walter Cronkite School of Journalism and Mass Communication, students learn solid, reliable reporting, holding the powerful accountable, and rebuilding the public's trust. The Cronkite School and Arizona PBS, preparing the next generation for a stronger future of journalism.
Here we go, lights up, whoa.
As artists, we conduct our educations in public. You can never know whether it's going to be a success. One just has to risk it.
It's you and the work and the place. It's a very particular relationship.
Here's our lens. Tell us what you think.
Friday night at 9 on Arizona PBS.
This month in Passport, your on-demand library of the best of PBS.
Everyone has secrets. Are you protecting someone?
I have no choice.
You do have a choice. You're looking at him.
That's amazing. We could be standing on top of a T-Rex right now.
Women demanded new space and pushed the boundaries of what being a lady means.
These and other shows are available with Passport. Become a member of this PBS station, sign in, and start streaming today.
Every day I wake up, my first thought is, how can I serve this community?
The biggest hurdle was not taking PTSD personally.
Would you welcome, please, the amazing.
Everybody that watches this, they say that I am the greatest that they've ever seen.
Until recently, the search for life beyond Earth has been focused on Mars. But now scientists have their sights set on Venus. NASA is even considering approving up to 2 missions to go there and probe the planet for more evidence. Abigail Veriwick explains why there's been a sudden shift to explore this part of the solar system. Abby?
Scientists found traces of phosphine molecules within the clouds of Venus, the same gas found on Earth. That's when the search for extraterrestrial life shifted focus.
On Earth, the toxic gas is related to both human and microbial activity. Phosphine has also been produced in very small amounts on Earth from volcanism. But get this, it would take about 200 times the volcanic activity that we have here to equal the amount of phosphine detected on Venus, according to astrobiologist Natalie Cabral.
Phosphine might be a biosignature, which would require a number of very, very tricky things to happen. Or it can be also the proof we have been looking for so long that actually there is ongoing volcanism on Venus.
Without definitive evidence to explain where the gas is coming from, it makes the presence of phosphine even more of a mystery to researchers.
It has the property that it gets broken up very easily by ultraviolet light. So whatever's making it is making it continuously, otherwise most of it would have disappeared. So the fact that it's there means that it's being generated. And the question is, where is that generation coming from?
In light of this significant finding, many scientists are excited about exploring where this could lead. NASA Administrator Jim Bridenstine says it is time to prioritize Venus.
The least interesting outcome of this would be if the observation just turns out to be wrongly interpreted and there is no phosphine. And that's possible. So, follow-up observations need to be done. And hopefully, I'm saying hopefully because I want it to be interesting, it really is phosphine. And then if it is, one way or another, we learn something really interesting about Venus, even if it's not life.
While scientists are still trying to find out exactly how the phosphine gas ended up on Venus, one thing is clear. Following this discovery, Earth's sister planet is long overdue the attention it's now getting from researchers. In the broadcast center, Abigail Verwick, Cronkite News. Finally tonight, the Phoenix Zoo and Wildlife World Zoo are now back open to the public. They were closed for months due to the COVID-19 pandemic. The Phoenix Zoo reopened to the general public last weekend. Some experience will remain closed, but right now you can enjoy Stingray Bay, camel rides, the Endangered Species Carousel, and the Safari Cruiser. Guests must wear masks and socially distance at all times. Zoo hours are 7 a.m. to noon through the end of September, then 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. beginning October 1st. Wildlife World Zoo in Litchfield Park reopened in its first phase on September 3rd.
That's it for Cronkite News tonight. Thanks for joining us.
For top Arizona stories anytime, go to cronkitenews.azpbs.org.